Revising the strategies to overcome employee resistance should be one of the easier topics to revise for because VCA's been very good in specifying what we need to know, and the past exam questions have all been reasonably consistent. So basically what we're going to have to do is describe or explain or outline, those all words effectively all mean the same thing, and then discuss or evaluate the strategies for overcoming employee resistance to change. Common exam questions. So we need to know that there's low risk strategies, and they're the strategies where we seek to include and involve the employee in the change in order to gather their support and overcome their resistance. And we had communication, empowerment, support, and incentives. Or we can use high risk strategies to overcome resistance. That is where we use force upon the employee to gain their support. And we had manipulation and threats. So we need to be able to explain or describe each one. So communication, use two-way communication to let people know about the change, the reasons for the change, the impact of the change, and how it's progressing. Empowerment, involve employees in the change. So get them to decide what changes are required and the strategies to implement them. And then they're going to be more likely to accept changes that they helped introduce. We had support. So when people are feeling anxious and stressed during change, we provide counseling, mentoring, discussion, well-being activities like social events, meditation, that sort of thing. And lastly, we had incentives, provide employees with rewards in return for their support. So it could be a bonus, a raise, promotion, etc. Then we needed to discuss or evaluate them. So we said there's some pros and cons. In the long term, these are good because you have high morale and low resistance, high trust with employees. It's good because you get ideas from the ground level from employees, which are always good for the business. And it helps meet the higher order needs of employees, so ones that want to fulfill their potential, well, they want to be involved in change. And lastly, they're going to be more committed to changes that they helped introduce. And I guess that you could throw this one into, if you want to relate it to management styles, it's very suited to the consultative or participative management styles. What are the disadvantages? Well, in the long term, change is slow. We've got to get everyone to discuss things and get involved, and it might not be possible. We might need to change really quickly. It's going to cost a lot, particularly if we use incentives like bonuses and stuff. That's going to cost a lot of money. And it can be inconsistent because we're going to get varying opinions here. We're not going to have one consistent strategy or idea implemented. We'll have a bunch. And lastly, there can be conflict that can occur during this. Employees might not be resistant to the change, but they might be resistant to other employees who have a different opinion. We also had high-risk strategies, manipulation, exert pressure and influence. So use persuasion, deception, only sell the positives, scare tactics, etc. Or threats, so use punishments. Punishments like demotions, pay reductions, loss of job, or maybe some unpaid overtime. And that has pros and cons too. Unbelievably, we sort of do say that this does have in the short term some positives. It is faster to implement change with high risk strategies, and we get consistent change. We're not asking for people's feedback here, we're just telling them what to do. So it is really good when there's a crisis, like maybe a publicity scandal or a product recall, something like that. And it's very suited to your autocratic and persuasive management styles. The disadvantage, I can help employees by avoiding punishments, they are sort of meeting their lower order needs in Maslow too. The disadvantage is, well, you're not going to have happy employees in the long run because, people being threatened and manipulated, that's going to cause a lot of anxiety. It also decreases trust with people, and probably rather than actually, might overcome resistance in the short term, but in the long term, it's probably going to create more resistance. And then you're going to have absent employees and employees turnover, industrial strikes, etc. So in the long run, these are not good options.